quarter 4, module 4. And it talks about identifying appropriate test statistics involving population mean. Test statistic is a random variable that is calculated from sample data and used in hypothesis test. You can use test statistics to determine whether to reject or accept the null hypothesis. So the test statistic compares your data with what is expected under the null hypothesis. So to identify the test statistic, you must consider whether the population standard variance is known or unknown. Depende. If the population standard deviation is known, the mean has a normal distribution. Again, if the population standard deviation is known, then the mean has a normal distribution, use z-test. So again ha, kung given ang population standard deviation, tapos ang mean has a normal distribution, we need to use z-test. But if the population standard deviation is unknown, then the mean has a t distribution, use t-test instead of the population standard deviation, use the sample standard deviation. So basically, ang bottom line lang ani nga paragraph is, kung unknown ang standard deviation, z-test ta. Kung known siya ang population standard deviation, z-test ta. T-test kung unknown. Ang gamiton lang nato sa t-test is ang sample standard deviation. So z-test. In a z-test, the sample is assumed to be normally distributed. A z-score is calculated with population parameters such as population mean and the population standard deviation. It is used to validate the hypothesis that the sample drawn belong to the same population. When the variance is known and either distribution is normal or sample size is large, use z-statistic. So again, i-emphasize dere na kung known si variance, population variance, or known si variance tapos normal distribution siya, or dili normal pero sample size is large. Again, na-discuss na nato na how large is large, 30. Kung greater than 30, you use z-statistic. While for the t-test, like a z-test, a t-test also assumes normal distribution of the sample. A t-test is used when the sample population a t-test is used when the population variance or standard deviation is not known. So sa z-test, known si standard deviation sa population. Sa t-test, unknown siya. When the variance is unknown and the sample size is less than 30, use t-statistic. So gamiton si t-statistic kung unang-una, sample of population variance is unknown. Wala ka kabalo, dili po nimo ma-solve. And at the same time, ang sample size nato is less than 30. T-statistic ta. But there is what we call the central limit theorem. In central limit theorem, if the population is normally distributed or the sample size is large, and the true population mean mu is equivalent to mu sub O, then Z has a standard normal distribution. Kanus ani magamit si central limit theorem? When population standard deviation is not known, we may still use z-score by replacing population standard deviation sigma by its estimate, which is the sample standard deviation. Since the sample size is large, the resulting test. Bottom line, kung unknown imong sample standard deviation, pero greater than or equal to 30 imuhang sample, then you can still use z-score by virtue of the central limit theorem. Kay usually manggod, gamiton si z-test kung known si population standard deviation. What if unknown si population standard deviation, but your sample size is greater than or equal to 30, you can still use z-score. And again, ang theorem na gibasihan ana is the central limit theorem, because kung large ang sample size, then our distribution tends to be normal distribution. So the table shows the test statistic is appropriate when kanus ka mag z-test, kanus ka mag t-test. So z-test, kung population is normally distributed or sample size is greater than 30 and population standard deviation is known. So basically, kung population standard deviation is known, z-test ta. But if the population variance is unknown and ang sample size nato is less than 30, then t-test ta. Pero what if the variance is not known? Unknown siya. Pwede known, pwede unknown. Pero again, sample size nato is 30, then z-test gihapon ta. Ang gamito na lang nimo nga standard deviation is katong sa sample na lang nimo nga standard deviation. Kay again, wala man kay variance dere, so dili nimo makuha ang standard deviation. So gamiton nimo sa sample na lang. So as a flow chart kumbaga, this is how to identify appropriate test statistic. So first, determine first sample size nimo. Kung greater than or equal to 30, wala na kay question. Known or unknown, z-test gina sila duha. Basta greater than 30. Z-test. Pero kung less than 30, dili ta mag-ask. Kung known ang sample, less than 30, pero known man ang iyang standard deviation, z-test ta. Mag-t-test lang ta kung less than 30 and at the same time, wala tay population standard deviation. T-test. So para mas dali lang kanilang atong memorization, mag-t-test lang ta kung ang sample size is less than 30 o variance of population standard deviation is unknown. The rest situation, z-test na ta. So that's the bottom line. So example ta. A manufacturer claimed that the average life of batteries used in their electronic games is 150 hours. It is known that the standard deviation of this type of battery is 20 hours. A consumer who wished to test the manufacturer's claim and accordingly tested 100 electronic games using the battery. It was found out that the mean is equal to 144 hours. Ang main goal lang nato diri is to determine kung mag z-test ba ta or mag t-test. So again, kung sa ray bantayanan, i-check lang kung ang sample size nimo is less than 30 o ang ang population standard deviation ba nimo is known. Kay kung kana ang mahitabo less than 30 at the same time sample standard deviation nato is population standard deviation nato is unknown, wala ta kabalo tapos less than 30, t-test ta. Pero kung dili nga to, then z-test ta. So kani, check na to ang sample size. Sample size there is 100. So greater than 30. Then gisulti po si population standard deviation. nakasulti dire, which is 20. It is known that the standard deviation. So, known ato ang population standard deviation. So, therefore, automatic z-test ta. Again, because population standard deviation is known. Tapos, nadoblihan pa yun, more than 30. Next, number 2. An English teacher wanted to test whether the mean reading speed of students is 550 words per minute. A sample of 12 students revealed that the sample mean of 540 words per minute with a standard deviation of 5 words per minute at 0.05 significance level is the reading speed different from 550 words per minute. So again, unsa atong bantayanan? Sample size. Naara. And standard deviation. A sample 12. And ang standard deviation. Ang question aning standard deviation, is this the sample standard deviation or the population standard deviation? And as you can see, a sample of 12. Nasa sample mean, so kaning standard deviation is actually the sample standard deviation. Dili siya population standard deviation. So meaning, n na to is less than 30. Kay 12 lang man. And sigma is unknown. So, mao na atong sitwasyon. So, kung kana ang given, unsa kaya nga test atong kaniton? So, yun. Since sample size is 12, tapos sample standard deviation lang man, dili man siya population. So, t-test ta. Again, ganong t-test because less than 30 and wala tayo population standard deviation. Next. A study was conducted to look at the average time students exercise. A researcher claimed that in average, students exercise less than 15 hours per month in a random sample size n, which is equivalent to 115. It was found that the mean time students exercise is 11.3 hours per month with standard deviation 6.43 hours per month. So let's identify. So based sa itong sitwasyon, ang sample size nato is 115. So n nato is greater than 30. And then, ang standard deviation is S. So S siya, meaning dili siya sigma. So, ang sigma is unknown. So, sa scenario nga greater than 30, tapos sigma is unknown, unsa nga test. So, therefore, z-test gihapon because we will apply the central limit theorem. So, yun. That's all for the topic, how to identify appropriate test statistics involving population mean. Thank you and see you next session.